Hi, I'm your host, John Pope, and this is episode number 7 of 100% Podcast. This episode's been a long time coming. We've taken a little bit of break, but we're back with a bang. I've got my good friend and Seth Prescott here in town from San Antonio. Welcome to the show, Seth.
Gregory Seth Prescott.
Gregory Seth Prescott.
There you go.
We use his full name.
Full name.
How are you doing today, Seth?
I'm good. It's good to be here.
Absolutely.
It has been a long time coming. You've been after me to get over here for like, what, a year or something?
At least a year. We've known each other for about 5 years or so.
I think so.
And to kind of transition into how we met, you were working a deal here in Houston. Seth does the same thing I do, tenant representation. And we co-brokered a deal together, and I started noticing some things about Seth that were a little bit different from your typical broker. Mainly that he just always wanted to help. He's got that heart for really helping people, helping the clients. So many brokers that
Try to be a consultant.
Yeah. He told me he doesn't think of himself as a salesman. He thinks of himself as a consultant. And so whether it's helping the client, with a referral and for a good tax attorney or helping him on moving day,
Yep.
He's always there for his client.
I've helped move some people.
Absolutely. And I was just
I don't offer it all the time.
I was just impressed with that because it kind of forced me to look in the mirror and say, am I adding as much value? Am I helping my clients as much as Seth? And I think it's helped make me a better broker, just getting to work with you and seeing your example in that, which has been great. And you've got an interesting story. You didn't take the typical route into the commercial real estate business
Or life in general, for that matter.
Right.
I don't know if you're planning to ask me questions since you roped me into this thing here, but my background is a little different. I actually was homeschooled pretty much my entire life. I think I went into a school when I was about 15 or 16 just to see what it was about. However, I think I got a really good education. My mom is she's actually a doctor. She has a doctorate from Ole Miss, and so I think I was educated fairly well. I grew up in Georgia, like you, and ended up, going to Russia for 9 months and Michigan for some training. And I actually ended up in construction first and worked for 5 years as a contractor in North Carolina and then moved to San Antonio, or just outside of San Antonio, before I got into the real estate business.
Yeah, so when you moved to San Antonio, I know a little bit about your story. You were actually on a ranch, correct?
Yeah, it was a game ranch just outside of Lukenbach, Texas. So, old Willie Nelson song about Lukenbach. I think it was like 2 or 3 miles south of there. And it was beautiful. I can't remember how many acres it was, but it was all high fenced. Game ranch, had buffaloes, zebra, elk, aoudad. We used to go chase the black buck with that orange fencing and get them into a corner and go tackle them. It was pretty crazy. But it's pretty unique situation.
So you went from tackling bucks to tackling deals, and
yeah.
How did you make that transition?
Some friends of mine that I had met when we first moved to Texas were working with C.B. Richard Ellis. A guy by the name of Russell Knoll and Michael Bakke. And so they decided to start their own firm called Knoll Bakke, and they hired me as one of their first employees. There was only like 4 of us total, but they hired me straight from construction. I barely knew how to use a computer, and other than to play games on it, and just ended up, they put me on, I think, 5 Class A office buildings in San Antonio. So I started my career leasing one of the top Class A buildings in San Antonio, Bank of America Plaza. And is actually the largest office building in San Antonio still. I think it's 532,000 square feet if they haven't changed the measurement of it. But, so I had a great start to my career with some, very solid mentors. Russell had been a leasing broker for most of his career, and his partner Michael was really focused on the tenant rep side of the business, which I gravitated toward. And so the first couple of years, not knowing how to do deals, they would bring me along and bring me into pitches and working mostly on the landlord side of the business. And I had no business connections in San Antonio, so I just had to get out there and work and call on people and try to find deals.
And you were going door to door at that time, correct?
I did a lot of cold calling, wore out numerous pairs of shoes, and so that's kind of how I started.
Were you, just get inside your mind a little bit here? I mean,
oh, that's a scary place to
go. If I picture myself coming from a ranch, getting to the corporate world and going door to door in office buildings, it seems like if that were me, I'd be intimidated by that.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I didn't know exactly what I was doing. I really think it took me 4 to 5 years before I really felt comfortable and had enough deals under my belt to really know what I was doing. So after Milwaukee, I started my career in 2000. I remember I actually passed my real estate test the day after my son was born. He was actually born on the ranch. And so I remember going in the next day and I'm just praying, God, let me pass this thing because I got too much to do. And so we moved off the ranch. I started this job, and that was in 2000. So, September 11th happened, and, the market tanked. And so there was a lot of uncertainty just all around, for everybody. I remember exactly where I was on 9/11, driving over the Cibolo Creek on 281 going south to work, not really knowing what was happening. And, that was after that point, things definitely slowed down. And so not too long after that, I left Milwaukee and went over to what was the Koger Center at that point. And that's really where I learned how to do a lot of deals. I did 125 transactions in 18 months over there. So I just, one deal after another, learned how to, write leases. I had a really good mentor there. His name was Steve Crozier. So I owe a lot to him. He really taught me how to, write good emails and, get to the point with people and, get them to where they would make a decision. And so I owe a lot to Michael and Russell and a lot to Steve, for the training that they gave me.
Unbelievable.
And I feel like I'm just rambling on, so I apologize if I'm talking too much here.
No, it's you're the guest today. I want you to talk more than me. What have you always been the type of person that just wants to help other people, or is that something you've developed as a skill to become more successful in business?
I think my parents always, taught me to be that way. My dad is always serving people and helping people, and he actually built our house. Like I said, I grew up in the country in Rome, Georgia, and he built our house. He tore down some, buildings and built, I call it the shed, but it was another little barn / room that we did our schooling in. But we were always going and helping other people too. He started he wanted to teach me how to work hard. Not that I wasn't already doing that from, just growing up in the country and having to, grow gardens and, take care of our 5 acres and everything else. But he started a lawn service. I don't even know how old it was, probably 9 or 10. And he started it actually with the idea of helping the widows in our church. And so we would go and mow their lawns for free. And then we would end up picking up the neighbor's yard, to mow it, and we get paid for that. So he started the business with the idea of really helping, the widows in our church. And so we mowed, I don't know, it was like 5 or 6 widow ladies' yards. And then that kind of started our lawn business from there. So from the time I was 9 or 10, because I was homeschooled, we would stop school about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and sometimes we would work until we'd turn the lights on after dark, finishing up yards. So that's pretty much all I did growing up was work.
Wow.
But it really started with my dad's desire to teach us how to work and to teach us to take care of other people.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen your work ethic firsthand in the commercial real estate business. I mean, do you think that's what's made you so successful? I mean, one of the most successful brokers in San Antonio. Seth is a humble guy, but he's one of the top in San Antonio.
You said I was in the top 10. I said there was only about 12 tenant rep brokers in town. So
right. So he's definitely in the top 10.
I think that's definitely part of it. I'm also, I think part of it too is I really try to think outside the box. I don't, not that I try to, I think I just think differently than a lot of other people. I try to be very creative in structuring deals and, making sure that, because I've done so many deals, I think I'm over 800 and something now. I kind of stopped counting, but, I think that just because of the number of deals I've done, I've seen certainly there's, I learned something new on every deal, but, it does help me to be creative in, working with my clients to make sure they get the best deal possible.
Totally agree. I mean, if you're not creative, you're not going to add as much value to your clients, because when you have what I've found in my career is when I've added the most value to my clients, it's when they come to me with a problem that they can't quite figure out how to solve. And you can use your experience, but also your creativity, which is an unlimited resource, and in order to solve that problem.
And I think my favorite thing to do, honestly, is networking. And so I try to help people solve their problems by bringing in, other people that know how to do something better than I know how to do it. So, I mean, I don't know how to do everything for sure, and it takes, I don't know how many people to close a deal. I mean, that it takes, sometimes 5, sometimes 20. And so, I think that's part of the job of a broker is to help your client make sure that they're protected and navigating through, architects and attorneys and engineers and space planners and, the other, but you also have to treat everybody fairly and ethically and, make sure that it's, I've never been I've always been a win-win person. I want everybody to win as much as possible, while putting my client's interest first, but it doesn't do them any good if you push it so far that the other side is, pissed off with you and them.
Well, totally. You burn bridges, and I found that you negotiate the best deals in, there doesn't have to be a winner and a loser in the deal.
Exactly.
Like you said, we can advocate for our clients and still not burn bridges on the other side. And when you call for the next client, I found that if you have a good relationship with that person that you've negotiated with before, you're ultimately going to get a better deal for your client.
Right, exactly.
And it's going to be a smoother process.
And I think it really helps them. I've tried through my career. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. I think coming up in January it'll be 20 years. But, I really tried to, become friends with, a lot of the other agents in San Antonio. And, just have mutual respect for, other people. And I think that really goes a long way because, when you get to a place where a deal is tough, having someone on the other side that, respects you and, knows that you're being honest with them and not, feeding them a line of bull, or trying to posture or whatever, I think that really goes a long way to, getting a deal done and really getting the best deal for your client.
100%. I mean, what do you think it is? One interesting thing about Seth is that about 80% of his business is referrals, which is...
Yeah, probably at this point.
I mean, for our industry, that is a very, very high percentage.
Either that or repeat clients, and if I hear about a deal, I'm going to go chase it. But a lot of those are warm leads or some sort of referral type situation.
That says a lot because so many brokers out there are just having to chase new clients, new deals every year because they don't take care of the clients or they forget about them after the deal's done, and you clearly haven't done that. I mean,
sometimes I do.
Nobody's perfect.
I'm only human.
Right, nobody's perfect. But over a period of 20 years, that really starts to pay off and pay dividends.
It's really, like yesterday I was touring with a client that it's a doctor client who I've, I wouldn't say I've kept in perfect contact, with her, but I helped her 10 years ago, and she reached out to me about 2 or 3 months ago, and we're working on either renewal at her current location or trying to help her find, a space to downsize a little bit, to right size for practice. And so, that's always nice to, work with people that you worked with before. And, I always try to make friends with my clients as well and keep in contact with them as much as possible.
Yeah, let's shift gears a little bit here and talk about San Antonio as a city. I've done deals there over the years, but you're in that market every day. I mean, tell us about that market. How is it changing? What's going on?
Well, there's a lot of building going on. We actually have a brand new building in downtown San Antonio, and then the Pearl District is really hot. There's 2 new buildings that are currently going up right now just outside the Pearl. And there's another one that's getting ready to break ground pretty soon. And all those rents are, pushing, 35 net. And, in the upper floors of Frost Tower, it's even more than that. So, on all the new buildings that we have in San Antonio, our rents are actually going, up to be, we're not to where Austin is for sure. But, we're starting to see some pretty significant rent growth. And even some of the other buildings that, have historically been in the, the low to mid 20s are, getting up into the high 20s now.
So ultimately, at 35 net, you're at close to, upper 40s to almost $50 a foot, all in rent wise. I mean, 10 years ago, when I started doing business in San Antonio, what would have been the highest rent? I mean, would it have even been 30?
No, not 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I would say that, some of the CBD buildings and then, some of the new buildings along 1604 have gotten there a lot faster, than the second generation buildings that were built in the 80s. But, it's been pretty dramatic over the last several years, how the rents have grown.
Have a lot of the buildings traded over the last 10 years, the major office buildings, or do you have...
Yeah, I mean, there's a fair amount of trade of the buildings. San Antonio, though, our market is so much smaller than, Houston or Dallas. Or I like to try to explain to people, like, you can take every single building in San Antonio and put it in the vacancy in Dallas, and there's still 10 million square feet left over. So it's just a small market.
What's the total square footage of the market, roughly?
It depends on whose numbers you look at, but it's like around 32 million.
Okay. Houston's
multi-tenant.
Right. Houston's at 326 million square feet. We've got
we're 10% of what you guys are.
Yeah. We've got
more sublease space than we have.
Yeah, we've got 53 million square feet of vacancy.
Yeah, vacancy
available in our market. But San Antonio...
It's a totally different dynamic, for a broker in San Antonio, I think, versus a broker, here. You guys are going to see a lot bigger deals, and it's going to be, I don't know, this is my perception anyways, that there's a lot more opportunity in a bigger city, but, I like the pace of life in San Antonio a lot better. I think our traffic's getting, as bad as some places around here because of the construction projects, but I think once those get up, I think it's going to really, fuel some additional growth north of San Antonio as those roads get opened up and, travel is a little bit easier because right now it's a huge mess.
Interesting. What do you think the most challenging thing about our business is, or your business specifically?
That's a hard question. I don't like to look at it as challenging necessarily. It's just a problem to solve or overcome. I mean, certainly there's a lot of emotion that goes into it. I mean, you can work on deals for 2 and 3 years and have nothing to show for them. But there's always that excitement too of like knowing that another deal's around the corner. I mean, there's a lot of times where I've gotten to the place where I am pessimistic or doubting myself, and you go without income for 3 or 4 months and your deals are looking bleak or you don't have anything in the pipeline. I mean, that gets a little scary, especially when you have 6 kids to feed.
Yeah.
So I've been very blessed, and I thank God that he has provided well over the last several years. And you try to be like a squirrel and shove your nuts in the tree and try to spend them as frugally as you can, so that you're not in a place where you're in a bind.
Right. That's one thing that if anybody's watching this that's looking to get into commercial real estate brokerage, or maybe you just got in the business,
Be prepared to be poor for a long time.
Yeah, it takes a while to get going, and then once you make cash, one of my early mentors, was big on having a lot of cash and keeping
debt as you can.
Keeping a lot of his net worth in cash and keeping it liquid, and it gives you a runway to be able to
Right.
chase new opportunities without having that stress.
Exactly.
Which is what I've done, and what you've told me that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think that you're missing out by not being in the market, but for me, having the cash there, having the peace of mind, and being able
Right.
to focus on my business and without the stress of checking the stock market every day is well worth it.
I agree.
Anything else you'd like to add to to our viewers out there?
Well, I mean, I would say the same thing, about you. I mean, I think, I've been very impressed with you and your entrepreneurial spirit and all that you're doing with, your software development. And, I was really excited to see some of that this morning. I think that's going to be a huge thing going forward. And, I'm really excited for what you're doing. And,
Thank you.
I know it's going to pay big dividends for not only for you, but I think for, your clients as they realize the value of it.
Thank you. Do you have any more positive things to say about me, or is that
You got good hair. I mean,
I try. Well,
mine's too long. I need a haircut.
Well, thanks for being on the show, Seth. Appreciate you finally getting in here.
Of course.
Glad to release another episode. Expect more of these here soon, and hope everybody has a great
I'm
day.
going to hate hearing myself on here, and I really don't want to see what I look like, but
We'll see.
all right.
All right, Seth. Thanks.
Thanks, man.